When you think about truly successful leadership, what image pops into your head? Is it the magnetic figure on the stage?
Yeah, the high-profile CEO, maybe, the person whose brand is the organization.
Exactly. We often measure success by that kind of visibility, don't we? By personal charisma, how brightly the leader shines right now.
Immediate impact.
But what if that metric is, well, fundamentally flawed? What if the real test isn't immediate influence, but something more like sustained multiplication?
You mean what lasts after the leader is gone?
Precisely. What if it's measured not by how big things are when you're there, but how much impact continues long after you step away?
That's a very different way of looking at it.
It is. And today we're doing a deep dive into really an essential roadmap for building movements that actually endure.
Okay.
Our sources comes from Chris R. Velasquez's guide, From Seed to Shepherd Raising and Equipping Leaders for Shepherding and Mission.
Right. I'm familiar with that work. It's quite challenging.
It really is.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to unpack this transformational shift the book demands, moving ministry away from being totally planter-dependent, relying on one dynamic person,
Which happens all the time.
towards achieving genuine, indigenous, elder-led sustainability. And crucially, with baked-in multiplication DNA.
And that mission feels urgent, doesn't it? Because the source material, well, doesn't pull punches, identifying the core problem here.
No, it doesn't.
We've all seen it, sadly, that bitter reality of post-founder collapse.
Oh, yeah. The thriving church, or maybe that fast-growing nonprofit that just falters, struggles, sometimes folds completely within a year or two of the founder leaving.
Right, and the book argues these collapses, and you throw in high turnover, the rising pastoral burnout crisis. These aren't just unfortunate anecdotes.
They're symptoms.
Yeah, symptoms of a structural weakness, an over-reliance on the gifts of, one individual leader instead of building reproducible, resilient systems of leadership.
So the founder becomes the bottleneck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when they leave, the flow just stops, dead in the water.
Okay, let's unpack this root system idea you mentioned. Velasquez uses this really compelling image, comparing the effective leader to a great gardener. And the source argues the leader's ultimate gift isn't the size of this season's harvest. That's the quick sort of vanity metric.
Right, the flashy number.
But the deep root system they cultivate, so that long after their hands are gone, new shoots just naturally, consistently arise.
It's leadership measured by generational fruit, not just the personal profile.
Exactly. It's a shift from just maintaining things to actually building a movement.
Precisely. And to get that generational fruit, the book details these 3 theological pillars. They form what it calls the biblical DNA for multiplication.
And this isn't just like a management strategy tweaked for churches.
No, it's presented as theological architecture, rooted really deeply in Scripture.
Okay, what's the first pillar?
The first is servant multiplication. It's fundamentally rooted in Jesus' own example. This is that radical redefinition of power. Think about when Jesus washes the disciples' feet in John 13. I mean, it just turns worldly hierarchy completely on its head. Greatness in the kingdom is defined by profound servanthood.
That's the idea of kenosis, self-emptying.
Exactly. That radical self-emptying. It's foundational.
Wow. That concept immediately changes how you'd even select leaders, doesn't it?
Completely.
If we're used to hiring the most charismatic, maybe the most assertive person, kenosis says, no, look for the person most willing to give credit away, the one who avoids the spotlight.
It's totally countercultural. The source suggests pretty strongly, actually, that if a potential leader consistently needs that visible affirmation, they fundamentally lack the DNA for sustainable multiplication.
So the primary test is humility. Service in small things.
Yes. Often unrewarded tasks. That's where you see it.
Okay. What's the second pillar?
The second is the chain of entrustment. This is more like the explicit mandate for multiplication.
Ah, the instruction.
Right. We find it crystal clear in Paul's instruction to Timothy. What you have heard from me, entrust to faithful people who will be able to teach others also. That's 2 Timothy 2:2.
That's the hinge verse, isn't it? It lays out, 4 generations of discipleship right there?
It does. Paul to Timothy, Timothy to faithful people, and then those faithful people to others. 4 generations in one sentence.
Amazing.
And it moves way beyond just mentorship. It's mandated reproduction. Paul didn't just tell Timothy, go do ministry. He said, train people who will then be able to train a 3rd generation.
That's how you go from one person's ministry to, an unstoppable movement.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, so you've got servant leadership, you got this chain of entrustment. What's the 3rd pillar? Does it address what happens if that hinged Timothy, say, gets tired or leaves.
It does. That's plurality. It's about building an institutional and pastoral resilience from the start.
Multiple leaders.
Yes. The New Testament consistently assumes multiple elders or overseers in congregations. Acts 14.23, Titus 1.5. These are key examples. It's about distributing that massive pastoral load right from day one.
Okay, wait a minute, though. If the goal is rapid multiplication and sustainability, doesn't mandating plurality, multiple leaders, doesn't that risk introducing conflict? Or maybe significantly slowing down decisions?
Yeah, that sounds like a management hazard.
Right.
That's a really crucial point, and the source tackles it head on. It admits, yes, plurality can slow down the speed of certain individual decisions.
Okay.
But it argues it exponentially increases the organization's resilience and its collective wisdom. It prevents that single-point failure we talked about.
So if one elder burns out or has to leave.
The structure holds. The shared responsibility itself becomes a form of crisis mitigation. It protects against the very burnout we started discussing.
Now, the benefit of the shared load outweighs the potential cost of shared authority, slowing things down sometimes.
That's the argument. It's a trade-off for long-term health.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. These are powerful biblical principles, sure, but how do we actually convert them into reproducible practice? Let's shift from the why of multiplication to the how-to, that practical roadmap.
Right, operationalizing the DNA. The book breaks this down into really practical phases. It goes from initial assessment right through to intentional release.
Phase 1.
Phase 1 is early identification. And the key instruction here is move past just looking for charisma or obvious talent.
Okay, so what are we looking for?
Character traits that predict future resilience. The book highlights things like a servant disposition, genuine teachability, proven faithfulness in small tasks, and building relational trust.
So instead of looking for the best public speaker first, you're maybe looking at who consistently shows up early to set up the chairs, even when nobody asks them to.
That's exactly the kind of thing. And critically, the book stresses using short, real-world apprenticeships rather than long academic gatekeeping.
Real-world tests.
Yes. You're testing character under pressure. How do they handle disappointment? How do they take corrective feedback? These real-world tests, the source argues, reveal more about leadership ability in, say, 5 months than a transcript might in 5 years.
And that makes it scalable, right? You can't multiply leaders quickly if everyone needs a 4-year degree first.
Exactly. It lowers the barrier while focusing on the essential character qualities.
Okay, so once you've identified a potential leader through this kind of character-focused apprenticeship, how do you train them efficiently?
That leads straight into phase 2, the core training engine. This is a field-tested rhythm often known as MAWL.
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 What does that stand for?
Model, assist, watch, launch, leave. It's profoundly simple, but it requires real discipline from the trainer.
Okay, break that down.
Model. The established leader demonstrates the practice. Could be leading a complex meeting, running a Bible study, maybe sharing the gospel. Whatever the core skill is, they do it in a real context, and the apprentice watches closely.
Okay. Then assist.
Assist. The apprentice co-leads. They take on specific delegated tasks, but crucially, with immediate coached feedback. They start gaining confidence, but they're still sort of protected by the lead trainer.
Right, learning with a safety net. Then the transition from assist to watch. That seems like the big pivot point.
It absolutely is. Watch is where the training wheels really come off. The learner now leads the entire activity. The coach steps back completely, observes, and here's a key detail. They observe multiple iterations.
Not just once. Why multiple?
Because, as the source material emphasizes, you need to ensure the desired pattern is truly embedded, that it's reproducible under different circumstances, not just a one-off success when everything went perfectly.
Makes sense. Ensure it's really stuck. And then the final step, launch leave. That sounds potentially terrifying for the apprentice.
It can be. But the key phrase is intentional release, not abandonment.
Okay.
The book stresses that the launch must come with agreed-upon, clearly defined check-in rhythms, not to micromanage, but for encouragement and accountability.
So they're independent, but not alone.
Exactly. The leader is released to lead independently, but they aren't just left to flounder. This intentional release is the final step in embedding that indigenous sustainability. They own it now. And the trainer. They move on to the next person.
That dynamic is so critical. And phase 3, I guess, is about making sure this newly launched leader doesn't just stop there, right?
Yeah.
They don't just do ministry.
They reproduce. That's
Yeah.
phase 3. Embedding multiplication DNA. This introduces the T4T logic, training for trainers.
240.
Right. If MAWL is the method of training, T4T is the mindset. The explicit goal isn't just training new leaders to do ministry effectively. It's training them specifically to train others to do ministry using the same simple, reproducible methods.
Ah, it's recursive.
Exactly. That recursive training is the engine of the whole movement. Think about it. If the training is super complicated, it'll probably stop at the first generation.
Yeah, it won't get passed on easily.
But if it's simple and relentlessly focused on reproduction, then it can scale rapidly.
Okay, so let's imagine a movement successfully integrates this servant DNA, the plurality, the MAWL T4T structure. What actually changes on the ground? How does success stop being just, a personal feeling of being busy and become a measurable reality of sustainability?
Well, the ultimate impact is a really dramatic shift in how success itself is defined and measured. The book challenges us to contrast what it calls vanity metrics with reproduction metrics.
Vanity metrics versus reproduction metrics. Give us an example of that contrast.
Okay, so a classic vanity metric might be weekly attendance numbers, or the size of the building, or maybe how many different programs you run.
Things that look impressive.
Right. They measure immediate influence, maybe, but they say almost nothing about future sustainability. You could have 500 people attending on a Sunday, but if you have 0 leaders being trained to reproduce the work, you're still just a single point of failure.
One crisis away from collapse.
Pretty much. Reproduction metrics, on the other hand, they indicate true health. Things like how many leaders have been multiplied in the last 3 years? How many new groups have been launched by those new leaders each quarter?
Tracking the downstream effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe most critically, elder transition readiness timelines.
What does that mean exactly?
It means asking, can we replace the current core leadership team seamlessly and ethically within the next, say, 2 to 5 years? If the honest answer is no, you're still planter dependent. You haven't achieved sustainability.
Oh, that focus on transition readiness. That forces a reordering of ambition, doesn't it? And demands real accountability.
It really does.
Okay, building a movement quickly, distributing authority widely, it still sounds inherently risky. I mean, the source material must address some serious potential hazards here.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where, the rubber meets the road. The hazards are very real, and the book argues they have to be mitigated proactively, not reactively.
What's the first big one?
The first major tension identified is speed without depth. Rapid multiplication, especially using something like T4T, definitely carries the risk of shallow theological footing if that core teaching gets compromised for the sake of speed.
Right. How do you guard the quality, the fidelity, while still maintaining the pace needed for multiplication?
The book suggests focusing intensely on guarding the core non-negotiables. Defines simple but absolutely non-negotiable doctrines. Maybe it's a 1-page reproduction DNA document, something clear and concise.
Okay.
That every new leader must be able to articulate and teach accurately. The point isn't needing an advanced theology degree, but ensuring absolute fidelity to that essential core of the gospel message.
Guard the center tightly. Allow freedom elsewhere. Makes sense. What's another hazard? Often related to expansion movements. Funding.
Yes, funding dependency. Huge issue. If a movement relies heavily on outside money from day one, it can never truly become indigenous, can it?
No, the goal of indigenous, elder-led sustainability is fundamentally contradicted if you're always reliant on external cash.
Precisely. So the book advises mitigating this by building local generosity rhythms, training people to give locally right from the start, very early on.
And having a plan.
And having clear plans for self-funding timelines, aiming for sustainability, usually within maybe 3 to 10 years, depending heavily on the context, of course. Financial independence is really the backbone of genuine indigenous leadership.
Okay. Speed without depth. Funding dependency. What about the problem we started with, burnout? How do we ensure that by multiplying leadership, we aren't just multiplying the stress and exhaustion?
Yeah, that's the fear, isn't it? But the solution to burnout, maybe counterintuitively, is actually more leadership. Or rather, properly distributed leadership.
How so?
Burnout tends to happen when one person, or maybe a very small team, carries disproportionate weight. The structure must be designed from year one to include things like sabbatical rhythms, real mutual accountability between leaders, and genuinely delegated authority.
Not just delegated tasks, but actual authority.
Right. If the whole system still relies on the founders being constantly present and involved in every decision, then the system itself is fundamentally broken. Plurality isn't just a nice idea. The book argues it's necessary for long-term survival.
So pulling this all together,
Yeah.
what does this mean for you, the listener, maybe in your own specific context?
Yeah.
The core takeaway from seed to shepherd seems to be this profound challenge.
Yeah.
To move from just maintaining what you currently have
Which is comfortable, often.
to intentionally multiplying leaders, who in turn will plant future leaders themselves.
It's a framework that really forces humility, I think. The deepest measure of leadership success, according to this roadmap, isn't the platform, the visibility you achieve, but the posterity, the enduring fruit that continues to grow long, long after your personal ministry might be complete.
That demands such intentional letting go, doesn't it? A real reordering of ambition. So maybe we'll leave you with the challenging question that the source material itself poses for reflection. Think honestly about your current context. If you disappeared tomorrow, what leadership and systems would actually survive and why?
It's a sobering question. Invest in roots, not just in the immediate fruit. That choice really reorders everything you prioritize today.